It is a Schmoes Know Movies show, and we are going to be joined in just a little bit here by author Andrew Conn. And we are very excited here. Makuga, tell us a little bit about, so the name of the novel is Oh, Africa.
Oh, Africa. He's a huge movie buff. He was inspired writing the book by a lot of different movies that he really wants to talk about his process writing a book about writing a book whilst being inspired by a movie.
All right, let's get him on the line. Jete, you ready? All right, let's get Andrew on the line. Let's talk to him about his novel, Oh, Africa. Andrew, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, happy to be here.
Hey, Andrew, how are you, man? Thanks for joining us today.
Of course.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about, so the Wild Man was just telling us on your process on Oh, Africa. So you were inspired by a handful of films in your process for writing this novel, is that correct?
That's partly correct. I mean, I studied film, and film was really my first love. And the first writing that I got published were movie reviews. I mean, I was writing for Film Comment and Time Out New York, and all of that. And probably the first writer that really got me excited about reading and writing just generally was Pauline Kael, the great film critic from the New Yorker. I mean, just her sense of voice and timing. I mean, she's as great as any American novelist, I would say. And if you read her collected criticism, it really does read like a great American novel. You just sense, these themes about the culture over, a 30 or 40 year period. It's really, really wonderful, and she had a huge impact on me. So film is my first love, and I always, was writing about film. And then my first book was a novel called P, and it was about a pornographic filmmaker, so that was about film in some way. Oh, Africa, it's about two brothers. They're twins during the silent movie era in the late 1920s, and they're making these slapstick silent comedies, but then through a variety of circumstances they go to Africa to make the first films ever shot in Africa. And the seed of the novel was inspired by a real-life incident in the lives of the Korda brothers, who were, a famous filmmaking family, and they actually went to Africa. They took several trips to Africa in the 20s and 30s, and they shot basically a vault of B-roll footage. And, for 20 years in Hollywood films, whenever, there'd be a Tarzan serial or something like that,
just use their footage.
They cut over a lion in the jungle, and it was their footage.
Well,
It's just a great anecdote, and I thought, God, there's a big, sweeping historic novel in there. But to your original question, I've always felt that I learn more about character and about psychology by watching great actors and great movies than I do, really from reading novels. And it's weird how my generation, I think, the novel writers are more influenced by the hours and hours and hours of watching TV and movies than they are, by reading classic books. And it's something that I don't think has really been written about. David Foster Wallace started writing about the influence of all this film and TV watching on fiction writers, but he's no longer around. It's really it's an interesting thing how one medium influences the other.
I mean, how much of an impact when you're writing your novels now does it kind of take when you're thinking, okay, I want this to be made into a film one day? Because there are so many incredible authors now where, they write their novel and immediately it's picked up to film. I mean, even Fault in Our Stars right now is just has such a huge following because of the author. How much weight does that play when you're writing?
Sure. I mean, that's a dream. I mean, that would be fantastic. And I think when you're working on a book, when you're working on a scene, you want to visualize it, right? And there are definitely times where I'm thinking about how does this look, or how would this what's the feel, and what would which director does this feel like, or even if I'm writing a scene with a character, sometimes I'm thinking about a certain actor.
Yeah.
So it always influences, but it's weird how certain scenes in movies influence you in weird ways. Like, so I'm a huge Marlon Brando fan, and there's that great scene in On the Waterfront, where he improvised the thing with the picking up Eva Marie Saint's glove, that she drops, and I've seen that movie a bunch of times years ago, but that glove stuck with me, and then that finds its way into the book in a different context. And it's just weird how these moments are they're almost like your own memories that you carry around with you.
Well, the book is called Oh, Africa, and we're talking to author Andrew Conn. And, you had mentioned that it was set in the late 1920s, I believe 1928. What was the research process like in terms of recreating this world as it existed nearly 100 years ago?
That's a great question. So I'd never written historic fiction, so that was one of the baseline questions that I had for myself when I started, which was, when you're trying to do something like this, do you spend a year or two researching vigorously and get to a saturation point, just a point of confidence where you feel like you've mastered the material and you could just start going, or do you just start writing and then you figure out what you need to know as you go along? And what I found was it's the latter, that it's more about a big voice. It's more about a tone and a voice that feels period authentic than having 1,000 facts at your disposal. And one of the interesting things about the question also is that I was working as a teacher and a tutor at the time that I started the book, and I was working with kids on a lot of novels set in the 1920s. And it's an obvious thing, but it's worth stating that any book written in a certain period is not a period book, right? So, you're reading a Hemingway book set in 1922, and
current times.
The hero is not going to say to the heroine, "Hey, this is a Clark candy bar. It's the #1 candy bar of 1922, and it sold 1 million candy bars." All that sort of stuff is the stuff that you just have to get rid of.
Yeah.
Are you a classic? Oh, sorry, I was going to ask if you're a classic film buff yourself, because that's my jam.
I am a classic film buff, but considering the period it's set in and considering it's about silent movies, it really wasn't silent movies that influenced me terribly much. I mean, Birth of a Nation is a big deal in the book, and the opening of the book is loosely based on this great Howard Lloyd movie, Speedy, which is shot in Coney Island, and Babe Ruth has a cameo in there.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
But I'm not particularly a huge silent movie buff. I mean, I go to the movies all the time. I just live and breathe movies. But
was that part of when you? I was going to say, was that part when you get tired of writing, you're just like, I'm going to go to the movies and get the mind off the book when you get a little tired and you just head to the theater? Is that your release?
I'm one of those people who. It's like a default setting. It's probably my favorite thing to do. It's always been my favorite thing to do. I'm still a child when I'm in a movie theater and the lights go down and the curtains open. It's just that moment of, stun me, surprise me, take me to this place.
Well, Andrew, if you could be surprised, because you had mentioned earlier before that you think about when you're writing, maybe an actor or directors too, if you could totally be surprised and someone called you tomorrow and said, Andrew, we just got so-and-so to direct Oh, Africa, who would it be?
So a joke I've had for a couple of years now is that I think our two greatest young directors are both named Anderson, right?
Yeah.
So
P.T. and Wes.
P.T. Anderson and Wes Anderson. And in some ways they couldn't be more different, but then in some ways they're really similar. The way they shoot, they have these... both of them are weirdly influenced by Kubrick, right? They have these scenes where the camera's just locked down, and the set is very controlled and the music is very controlled. They're both amazing. I mean, There Will Be Blood and The Master. The fact that this guy is barely 40 or in his early 40s, I mean, he's astonishing. And then Wes Anderson, he gets a bad rap. I think some people think he's a mannerist or that his stuff is overly stylized. But the last movie, The Grand Budapest Hotel,
Fantastic.
he was able to, yoke his style to history. And the very point of the film, I thought, was, the wiping away of this style. That World War II comes in and just kind of wipes away this very beautiful, ornate European style. And I thought that was the best movie he's made since Rushmore, which I think is the best American comedy of recent memory.
Would you take
so
out of those two? Yeah, which one would you take?
I mean, it would be such a different film. And that's the mark of a really great director, is that you know, you could see 5 seconds of a P.T. Anderson movie or a Wes Anderson movie, and you know exactly who it is.
Go P.T.
He doesn't want to throw either of them under the bus.
No, well,
He's like, I'm gonna keep both on the table.
Yeah, he's keeping his options open. Exactly. No, I understand that for sure. Again, guys, make sure you can check out the novel "Oh Africa." It is author Andrew Conn. And Andrew, right now, where could Schmoville find the novel?
So it comes out on Tuesday the 10th, but you can pre-order it, and you know, it'll be in bookstores in a couple of days.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Andrew Conn, ladies and gentlemen. Again, make sure you check out Oh Africa. It comes out. And again, thank you for joining us today, Andrew. And if you're in LA, you should join us in studio.
Thanks a lot. It was tons of fun.
All right. So, there you go, guys. Oh, Africa.
Interesting story.
Yeah.
It is.
It kind of reminds me of the Wilhelm scream. You know, it's that stock
yeah,
scream
yeah,
that's
yeah.
used in so
Everything,
many films,
yeah.
even today.
Yeah,
to use
yeah.
the same footage.
Well, and even when you look at something like The Fall, and they put the old footage of
man, that movie's
stuntmen,
so
Yeah.
and you know, I wonder if I wanted to ask him a little bit about it, but like if the artist had anything to do with inspiring him at all, or if he's like, he saw that movie and he's like, I'm at the exact right time to write this book.
the golden age.
Yeah.
So again, guys, you can check that out. And the story is very interesting. Our buddy Crazy James had introduced us to Andrew, and Crazy James has been just doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
Jesse
he's great.
Eisenberg, and he's just working it, and we're looking to get more guests on and